All right, everyone, time to talk about the hypocrisy of the legacy media. This is an NBC News article here, link in the description, archived, obviously, on Venezuela. And it's saying, well, Venezuela, because it has state control of, the ISPs there, the internet is completely controlled by the state, like everything else, but it's totally not socialism, everyone. Everything's, sort of socially owned, but, it's actually capitalism that's responsible, or the CIA, depending on what miscreant you ask. Totally not socialism's fault. NBC pointing out that it's become a problem because, normally, if you wanted to, organize protests and shit, using the internet's an easy way to do that. The limit of internet activism is that it must spawn real-world results. A policy change, a protest, a riot in some cases, or something, some call to action is put out and it's answered. If it stays just on the internet, like people circulating feelgoodchange.org petitions, look, petitions don't do jack shit unless it's an absolutely overwhelming number of people participating so it becomes newsworthy, or unless it's on like whitehouse.gov, it's an actual official petition that will get an actual official response. And even then, sometimes it doesn't. So people need to keep that in mind. But NBC is lamenting the fact that Venezuela has this censorship power. They've kept the internet largely off during these protests. And they started, I think, 3 weeks ago or something. They blocked like YouTube and shit. I think Twitter is still sporadically open. Like, I've had people say, well, I'm in Venezuela, I can give you updates and stuff. It's impossible for me. Normally, I don't take them up on the offer because it's impossible for me to verify they're actually there. I've got to be very careful about my news sources, even though I do appreciate people. I mean, I'm sure most of them are telling the truth, but I've got to filter things out. So if I don't know enough about the situation, I'm like, maybe it makes more sense to like use my own analysis in those situations, and or go to Venezuela. But I think I'd probably get thrown in a gulag, I would assume. And then again, my channel's not blocked in Venezuela. It's blocked in Germany and France, though. So what does that say about Europe? You Western Europeans have some issues with your government over there. But it's funny because NBC isn't aiming that same criticism at exactly the same sort of censorship that we now have here in the U.S. and elsewhere. Total depersoning, financial deplatforming and stuff for political dissidents. It's fucking the same thing. If someone were to say, hey, yeah, being right-wing is right, and then they say, well, we're going to have a right-wing protest, Facebook and Insta will shut them down, and Twitter will ban them and stuff. How's it any different other than it's more targeted? It's just more refined. It's like the difference between a drone strike taking out one vehicle and, dropping a whole, fucking plane load of bombs on the neighborhood. It's basically the same end result for those people now, isn't it? It's very funny how people roll over and play dead as soon as you say, but this censorship is privatized. So, you don't have a problem with the concept of censorship. You don't have a problem with the philosophy of free speech being fundamentally trampled on. The only problem that these so-called liberals have, and trust me, it's liberal in name only, is the fact that it would be administered by a state entity. But the thing is, look, authority is what can be corrupted. Any power structure. Are you telling me that multi-billion-dollar corporations at this point that are bigger than some countries, aren't a major power structure that needs to be constrained in some manner? Existing U.S. law is enough. Like when Esteval rambles about, Styx is pro-regulation now. It's been on the books for a long time. We've got laws against vertical monopolies. We've got laws against trusts. We've got laws that relate to the differentiation between a platform and a publisher for legal purposes. These companies are in violation of all of them. I would say the legacy media, to an extent, is in violation of various ordinances and laws. It's just that once you have enough money, of course, you buy off a couple senators, you buy off a governor maybe, and you're shielded from the repercussions. Don't you think Zuckerberg has, deep pockets, and enjoys that for a very good reason? Don't you think there's a reason why when they pulled him before Congress to testify on the concept of data leaks at Facebook, he wasn't put under oath so he could lie openly and not have a problem? And he did. He lied several times objectively during his congressional testimony, no repercussions. But then, Diamond and Silk, they get put under oath and they get rambled at angrily by several members of Congress. Nobody did that to Zuckerberg. The closest thing you had was Ted Cruz scowling at him a couple times. Even he didn't really raise too many. I mean, it was a fucking farce. And they've done this before. They had Google's people up before them. They've had, I think Dorsey's gone up. I know his lawyer friend there that was on the show with Joe Rogan there with Tim Pool did. It was funny, and then you have that side of tech censorship, which is the what the fucking shit is going on side. Like you have Jack Dorsey there. He looks stoned out of his mind, although he doesn't smoke on camera, basically. He looks, or drunk or something. And then he says, yeah, we need to do more, we need to do more. Basically being conciliatory to Tim Pool. 2 weeks later, he's like, yeah, by the way, we might remove like the like function and stuff like that. Because we want to break people's echo chambers by forcing them to follow ideas instead of people. Fundamentally overhauling the whole site and showing absolute lack of self-awareness of why the problem exists in the first place. Very interesting. It's very funny to see NBC, again, many billions of dollars company. What's their parent firm? I couldn't even tell you. There's like 6 or 7 companies all fucking world that run basically all of the media. Silicon Valley for several decades was essentially the alternative to that boring, old, cloying, stupid, corporatized version of reality. Silicon Valley was where independent content started blooming and competing with it. Then they said, oh my god, oh, crazy shit, and they started buying ads. And so they used money to get in with the Silicon Valley people. So now we need a whole parallel internet structure. What we really need is just to enact existing law. No more vertical monopolies. Basically, if you're going to start censoring material, you can't be within one of these monopolies. We're going to break you up. We're going to consider you a trust. We're going to crack your company into a dozen pieces so that there's competition, and hopefully one of those smaller firms will then, actually allow the proper public discourse. That's what we really need. No more vertical monopolies. No more trampling on alt tech by trying to go after their payment processes and stupid shit that's already illegal like that. So they hate the fact that Venezuela would have a censored internet. Maduro can basically throw the switch on it. But they can do that here. If they don't want you hearing Paul Joseph Watson, they can, in 24 hours, they can basically deperson him off the visible internet. He'll still be on Gab. He'll still have a Minds account. He'll still be able to reach out to people. He'll have a Subscribe Star maybe. He'll be able to reach out to people on BitChute. But he's not going to be on YouTube anymore if that happens. Not allowed to have a Twitter, not allowed to have an Instagram, Facebook page, and stuff like that. Even other people won't be able to run pages associated. Like, there's an unofficial Sticks, Hex, and Hammer Twitter that's actually under Sticks, Hex, and Hammer 666 as the handle. A fan runs it. And it basically just spews out my video uploads. It's basically a notification machine that he had made. If I were to get deplatformed off of Twitter, probably that one would get taken down too. Simply because it's fan-run. You can't even be a fan of a wrong thinker anymore and be safe. You can express your... Like, YouTube doesn't do this, but Facebook and Twitter certainly do. They had the official Sargon and Tommy Robinson campaign accounts. These are legitimate political accounts. These associated with registered actual political parties. Even they're not immune to it. The censorship level in Silicon Valley has begun to interfere with the world's political process and financial processes at the most direct level. It must be reined in. If we want the internet to be an interesting and fun and thriving place where a person can also potentially be productive and innovate and maybe even make a fortune or something, we've got to go down the American route. We can't go down the European or Asian routes as far as how they treat it. The Asian system is intranet, very, very partitioned, centralized state control. The European system is intervened in, bureaucratized, and burdensome, heavily censored in the more indirect sense where companies are doing it simply spurred by legalism. The American way is unregulated. Hey, we'd rather not regulate even the biggest tech monopolies. Just take a hands-off approach to the content, be a platform. Make as much goddamn money as you want. They have no further responsibility. The idea, like the Christchurch call to action and stuff like that, it's just censorship wrapped up in a cute little bow to make it more palatable. It's basically poison with a little sugar sprinkled in it so that it go down your kid's mouth right before it chokes them to death. That's what censorship is. Think of the children. Yeah, I think of the children. That's why I oppose all forms of censorship. And I find it very, very funny that a legacy media outlet, even NBC, one of the dumbest of the dumb outlets that are in the dumb, old-style, old-school media, even they should have enough self-awareness to realize how fucking funny it looks to decry censorship in Venezuela while trying to import as much as possible here. And it's the same thing. It doesn't matter whether it's a state or a non-state entity. The effect ultimately is exactly the same, and the danger to society as well. That's about all. Peace out.